Okay, chapter 8. They played on the sand for about an hour or so until Mr. Hepworth called them together at the foot of the slipway which connected the promenade to the beach. Right, what I thought we'd do between now and tea time is this. Walk along the road here and have a look at the fish quay, then along the quayside to the swing bridge and over into the old town. There are lots of interesting shops in the old town, including some specialising in Whitby jet. We could have a look in some of the windows, but I don't think we should shop today. Otherwise, some of us might run out of pocket money halfway through the week. At the end of the old town is a flight of steps, leading up to the abbey and a church. There are a lot of steps, and I want you to count how many of them there are as we go up, and tell me when we get to the top. We'll go in groups again. Do you know your group, Barry Tune? Sir. Good. Here we go then. The three teachers moved apart and called their groups to them. The children got into twos, and this time Fliss had Gary for a partner. He grinned at her. Holding hands, are we? No chance. I've got to eat my tea with this hand when we get back. I'll be using a knife and fork. Ha ha. Actually, that's quite witty for Gary, isn't it? I kind of maybe written him off as a character, but that's quite a good comeback. So he'd asked Fliss if they were going to hold hands, because when they were younger, when you went on school trips, you would find a partner, hold their hands. So he's made a joke out of that, and Fliss has said, oh, no way, I've got to eat with this hand, so I don't want to eat after I've touched you. And he's come back quite quickly, but with I'll be using a knife and fork, actually. That's quite quick of him, isn't it? I'm impressed. Maybe there's more to Gary than we thought. They looked at the fish dock, but there were no boats in, and the sheds with their stacks of fish boxes were shut. They went along the quayside, threading their way between strolling holidaymakers, looking in shop windows or at the different kinds of boats in the harbour. There was that excited smell in the air which you get at the seaside. Oh, I know exactly what he's describing. That exciting smell. I love the seaside. That blend of salt and mud and fish and sweet rottenness which has you breathing deeply and makes you tingle. They were taking their time. The evening meal wasn't until 6:30, and Fliss was looking at a cobble with her name, Felicity, painted on its prow, when Gary grabbed her hand and cried, Hey, look at this! What? She spoke irritably and jerked her hand away, but looked where he pointed and saw a narrow building with dark windows and a sign which said, The Dracula Experience. A tall man with a pale face, dressed all in black, smiled from the doorway at the passing group. His teeth seemed quite ordinary. Gary raised his hand and waved it at Mrs. Evans. Miss, can we go in here? Miss, please, miss. Mrs. Evans, who had been looking out over the harbour, turned. She saw the building, read the sign, smiled faintly and shook her head. Not just now, Gary. On Thursday, everyone will be given some free time to shop for presents and spend whatever's left of their money in whichever way they choose. You'll be able to buy yourself some Dracula Experience then. She looked into the eyes of the smiling man and added loudly, If you must. They crossed the bridge and sauntered through the narrow streets of the old town till they came to the church steps. By the time they'd reached the top, Fliss was out of breath. She counted 197 steps, but Mr. Hepworth, whose group had got there first, said there were 199, and she believed him. The top of the steps gave on to an old graveyard. Weathered stones leaned at various angles, so eroded you couldn't read the epitaphs, so worn away that the writing on the gravestones had been weathered. Long grass rippled in the wind. There was a church and a breathtaking view of Whitby and the sea. They had a look inside the church. It was called St Mary's. Mr Hepworth pointed out its special features. You could buy postcards and souvenirs by the door. Fliss bought a postcard of the ruined abbey to send home. When they were gathered outside, she said, "Are we going to the ruins, sir?" She wasn't sure whether she wanted to or not. "Not today, Felicity. We'll be looking at them on Wednesday morning before we set off on the walk to Saltwick Bay." They poked about in the churchyard for a while and visited the toilets near the abbey. Then they descended the 199 steps and began making their way back to the Crow's Nest. The fresh air and exercise had sharpened everybody's appetite, and most of the children spent the walk back wondering what was for tea. Fliss did not. She was thinking about the landing on top of the house and what it would be like in the dark. The funny thing was, she seemed to already know. Always leaves a chapter on a bit of a cliff edge, doesn't he? Always leaves us wanting that little bit more. Okay, those chapters were just for you guys to just listen to and enjoy. We will do a little bit more comprehension at the end of the week, but I hope you've enjoyed listening to those. I hope you have a really good week. Keep working hard, guys, and I will be back on Thursday to read you the next couple of chapters. Okay.